Hi, everybody. This is the Nephew SIG architecture call or SIG automation call for Wednesday, August 30th. So I believe what we talked about last time was to go through the requirements document from SIG 1 and kind of start to digest it and understand what we're going to do for R2 planning. So does anybody have that document available? I don't have it, the link immediately available.
You mean the
Slack, yeah.
SIG 2?
It's in the Slack. Let me just find it.
In the Slack, okay.
It's in their agenda. Agenda and notes. And if you go to the yes. Yeah, it's I'm gonna just message it here.
All right, I'll find that. One thing actually before we I wanted to ask, are there any updates from, thank you, Mala, from the SIG release meeting on Monday? I was not able to attend.
Yeah, there was, yes, it was mostly a retrospective
Okay.
that we ran on that day. And then we discussed about, what went well and what some of the things that we could do better. And Tal has created a documentation for that one, and probably we're updating those documents as well. So it's mostly, probably we can pick up a few items in this release and try to do a few things better and then keep on improving.
Okay, all right.
We didn't spend too much about the other aspects of the release itself,
Okay.
because we wanted to get this one concluded today so that we can have a better idea.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so yeah, so this is the agenda as I'm aware of it. And anybody, I don't know, we'll get to all these things, but was there anything else we needed to cover, or should we just start going through the document? All right.
Well, this is our main agenda, so.
Pardon me?
I think this is our main agenda probably once we finish this.
Okay. So can we, that's okay.
It was somewhere in the beginning itself.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Yeah, it was, let me see.
So, I mean, I think the themes, where do you want to start? You want to start with the, are you saying?
The way I look at it is if you see the August 21st.
Oh, I'm sorry.
August 21st, 23, I think that's where 3 items are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, these key deliverables. Yeah, so we talked about this last Thursday, I think, in the meeting. So, all right. 2 or more NF vendors on the same infra. I think we've already talked about this, right? The OAI ran. Sagar's been doing a lot of work on that. What? So I don't know. I guess what are we trying to get out of this discussion here?
No. So the idea is the OAI 5G core and the free 5GC 5G core, and then when we deploy those, both of those using the same CL, what kind of things are they different? And then we would like to create that hook so that they would do something different. Meaning that if the infrastructure requirement would be different, they may need one. Free 5GC we know. I don't know anything about OAI. The free 5GC we know they need a set of kernel modules, they need multis, they need a particular CNI.
Okay.
So we would like to be more dynamic on this, and then
Yeah.
you know, we could take a step further and start mocking stuff too. But then I don't know. I don't think we'll get there. But,
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get is, like, we have this 50 minutes together as a group. Like, what do we need to decide, or what's the output of this meeting? I want to make sure that we make the most use of the time we have all together. I know there was discussion, although the calendaring is not straight, so I assume there's a meeting tomorrow morning.
Yes, yes, John.
Is there meeting tomorrow morning?
Yeah, so basically
Okay.
in tomorrow's my understanding is this. In tomorrow's SIG architecture meeting, we are going to commit to certain aspects, and today's meeting, we have to decide what items we are going to commit to for our R2 release. So I think probably the outcome of this meeting is, okay, we are going to commit to these items, and this is what we are going to deliver in R2, and that's what we are going to communicate to architecture tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we should focus on this list of things from Kaushik rather than the other doc, because the other doc seems to be drifting towards R3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So So what do we I mean, I think in an open source context, commit is a loose term. But
Yeah.
What we intend,
basically what we can do.
what we think we can do. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. So all right, so let's look over this list, and it looks like we've already got leads assigned. So what it has to come down to is
maybe John, if I maybe just to start, or at least I have some idea. So one team is run, right? So I think we have Sagar's work, right? So let's start maybe with that, right? So we have all the OAI stuff and Sagar's things, right? So one of the things that we need to do, in my view, ASAP, is to, I think there is two main things that require some discussion in this group, probably. One is we have to go to all the CRI, so all the requirements that Sagar is doing to ensure that we either extend, we update our requirements and some of our CRDs to incorporate some of the elements that we need, right? And we need to see how to do so. We can also do that in a sub team or something. And the second thing I think for me here is to what we did not do with, and that's by the way also applicable for Free5GC, and that will have, in my view, probably an impact, not probably big, but limited also in Free5GC, is that I believe we should have the ability to add a CRD into our package, which is I call it vendor specific for lack of a better term, but something that we don't act, and we have to have the elements in place to both on the management cluster and workload cluster to incorporate that. So that's for me a very specific work or you can split that into a number of things that that we can probably subdivide. Okay.
Right. So two work items you see are.
So there is CRD. So there is CRD, and by the way, we should do that for the run as well, ASAP. So the run, the core. So we should probably go to Sagar's work so far, include the radio. So have a focus on what are the CRD implications that we have. What do we need to do to extend it? And then the second piece is to allow for what I call vendor specific CRDs through the whole pipeline that we can basically act upon. For example, if we so for example, for the second item is today in the Free5GC, a lot of parameters are local on the workload. There's no way we can influence them. So with this, we would be able to add that and influence. So that means that probably there will be a change in the operator to be taking that into account. I think we need a small thing in specialization, in my view, to do something there.
So you're talking about 3GPP parameters? local.
But there are
stuff.
more like there's also DNS and stuff like that, right? So it's not necessarily related to 3GPP.
Yeah. So today we are locked in that it needs to be in the same cluster if anything stick to the service bus, because we use name resolutions on
But maybe
configuration.
we could potentially also discuss that. So this is one item I think we should or have some people work on, that we can figure that stuff out. Right?
Okay. So stepping back, so the key deliverables as put in this document, we have to decide here whether we think we can deliver this, right? 2 or more NF vendors on the same infra. I think we can deliver that. We can commit to something there, right? You've defined a couple of work items we need to make it work well.
Are we talking about that, or are we talking about OAI at this point?
I think it's the entire number one.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about A. I was talking about A.
Okay.
Now A there is more to A, by the way, in my view, because so there was an action. So I had a call with Bernard and Eric last week on, so you know that Bernard had this request to have more infra to NF stuff, right?
Right.
So I had a call with them to understand a bit better. That was the action that we took, right? Or that I took.
Okay.
And I am in the process of documenting that, what it means, and so on and so forth. So my goal, so this week is a bit hectic for me, but so next week I can present some of the thoughts, or that was my goal, is to present some of the thoughts on what I'm doing, just to be clear, I have a view on how this works, so we have to review that within the bigger team. And then we can see, are there things from here that we could potentially take on in R2 or not, right? Or at least start to discuss, maybe some of these items go to R3, some of these items go to R2. So I'm trying to split and maybe subdivide, but I would like to, so my goal was...
This is specifically about the way NFs make requests.
For example, we need to have kernel modules, right?
Okay,
so
that's
some people, so that's the whole discussion. Or we need to have specific things, and the ultimate goal is that the whole infrastructure dynamically updates itself based on NF. So that's the big picture, right? But probably we have to have baby steps or steps to get there, right? So I'm trying to...
As part of your research, are you looking at ecosystem projects at the actual,
not at the moment, so I'm going to put let's say building blocks or whatever to achieve that. And then I think I'm hoping that some people say, okay, this is already there, this is not there, and then we can figure out whether what we do and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to talk implementations. I'm going to talk about building blocks. And
so for A, just to try to summarize, we see there are kind of three categories of, and then there's 3 on here, but I don't know that they're the same 3. There's 3 or maybe 4 categories. There's the infra requirement CRDs. There's the common the common NF CRDs, like the PR3GPP things. There's the enhancements to the RAN specific, enhancements to the core specific CRDs. There's RAN specific CRDs. This is more than 4, because then there's also oh, I distracted myself and now I forgot what I was going to say. There's the infra requirements. There's the common NF things like NF deploy and those things. There's enhancements to the existing core ones. There's the RAN ones. These are like 3.
Is there anything vendor add-on stuff?
Oh, vendor specific. Thank you, Vala. Yes. And then that's the 5th one. Vendor specific CRD support. So there's 5 things from a top level surface that we want to work out. Infra requirement CRDs, but there's also probably is that the same as? I think that's half of it. I think there's the infra modeling CRDs that we would match to requirements. So like we have our workload cluster, very simple thing that just says here, there's CNIs it supports, but we have to be able to discover and or inventory what is available, as well as declare what we need. So I think there's actually two.
Yeah, correct. So that's part of the whole thing that I will discuss, right? So one of the proposals, I mean, what I'm proposing is today the workload CRD we just create as part of the package, right? But I want it. So in my personal view is I think it should be the starting point. So you basically say I need a workload cluster, and then whether you have copy or KCC or cross-plane or whatever, I don't really care. So it should. So that's my philosophy, is that it will be the source or the intent start from there, or OpenShift or something like that. And then we can use the kind implementation that we have, or we can have other things underneath, right? So, but then we have to have mechanisms.
It's a class claim model, right? The workload, it's like a workload cluster claim, and then it can be fulfilled by any of these classes.
Correct. Yeah. Something like that is what I'm personally thinking. And then we have to have a way to report back some information from the cluster potentially. And I'm not saying that we do all of that in R2, right? But I'm just so I'm just saying these are potential building or elements that we need to do or have to accomplish or to get there.
So in this case, your infra is in the package. So the infra CLDs are infra specific, are platform specific.
Now, so today, so today what we have is we basically say we need a cluster, and we by default, without any logic, we pick our kind, basically, because it's part of, we did a hard coding somehow, right? And the kind one has then already workload cluster in it. So we basically really took a shortcut, I think, but I think that's all we could do at the time. So I think the idea here, or at least the idea that I have is, let's say, make it more flexible, right? Is that you can have multiple implementations more easily. And it can still be starting from a package. That's then how we implement, right? It can still start from a package, or you can start from a CRD, from a controller. That's something that we then have to discuss on how to do it. But for example, if to give you an example, if we start from a workload cluster claim, let's say, and then for this specific environment, we chose KCC or OpenShift or something like that, it will auto-select the package that is there to do. So that's the philosophy that I'm thinking.
Yeah. So it's very much like persistent volume claim, and it can provision one, or it can choose one that already exists. And we would have the same kind of logic where we would say, here are my requirements for a workload cluster. And we might need things like it has access to these networks, right? We might need things, right? All of these things. And so then we need a controller that, like right now, we don't have a controller. It's just like you said, hard coded, or effectively we pick the one. But we would need a controller that decides how to satisfy. You just lost your light, huh?
We need to do motion. There's a motion.
So the question becomes, how do we solve that particular problem of that selection? And I'll go off on a tangent.
And so there's a whole, I think there's a huge item by itself, by the way. What I think we have, or what I would like to do is first come up with the architecture, or let's say the building blocks. And then we can basically, we can pick.
Yeah, I mean, the discovery of what you have, and then maybe selecting packages based on what the hardwares are available, registered, and you have some sort of inventory database or something like that too.
Yeah, this is what I would call it. The dependency controller we've talked about in the past is one solution to this, although we might need more specific controllers that are more sophisticated than what we can do with a generic dependency controller. But before we go, it's exciting and fun to talk about. Let's try to keep on track. So what that tells me from a point of view of what we're trying to come up with in this meeting is that I think that effectively what we're saying is in A, there's a whole roadmap of functionality that will be delivered over many releases. I think we can commit to taking the first step along that road. And so whatever that means isn't clear yet, but I think we can commit to some functionality and or design along that path. So I'm comfortable with that. I don't think we'll know right away what that is. And if they're hoping tomorrow, which I can only be there for the first half tomorrow. But if they're hoping to, I don't think, I think it's all, it's all, okay. That sounds good. So I'm comfortable with that. Does anybody object or think if we go
particularly
tomorrow,
for this scenario would be supporting a second NF vendor for the same NF type, the infrastructure able to resolve that infrastructure requirement, at least for a preparation perspective. I think we should have some sort of elegant solutions instead of hard coding.
But so just to be clear, we can decide just to do a check and keep it like that, or we
Yeah,
can
or something like this. Yeah, so we have to demonstrate.
These are all options we have basically. Yeah.
Right.
It has to be a little more dynamic.
It's a path, and we'll go partway down the path, but we don't know yet how far. But we will start down that path. I think that'll be the statement. Okay, so for B, Sagar, I would want to ask you, because you're the lead here and done so much work on it. Is this something you see being able to meet to get the OAI RAN and core up and running? I know you already presented, so I think the answer is yes, but I just want to confirm.
Yeah. So, just before that, I want to say this since Monday that, so, okay. So for 16th of October, I have to defend my PhD. So,
oh boy.
First, okay. So all this, which I'm doing this year with Nephew, it's like, I'm doing it with my PhD. So at least I'm done. I'm done with my thesis. Everything is fine. So I have to defend my PhD on the 16th. I will cut off in September 30th. So before that, I will try to have everything end-to-end ready. That's what I am. I mean, theoretically.
Okay. Do we have a backup if it's not done and you can't devote any more time? Is there somebody else who is involved in the community or can work on it? Or I'm confident. If you're confident, I'm confident.
Yeah,
but just
I'm working
if there's
with,
a bug, if there's a problem, I don't want to distract you from something more important.
So I'm working with Joseph on this. Joseph from Samsung. So I mean,
so I'll be helping. Sagar.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be available beyond
Joseph.
September as well.
Joseph did a presentation last time, so I can he's thinking of coming up with a CRD for man.
Can we get to that point? That when are you guys think we can get the CRDs? Because I think it's going to be an important part.
Yeah, so we have a working copy. I think maybe next week.
Can we share it somehow?
Can you write a doc or something out of that?
Yeah, we are
creating
a document. Yeah, we are creating a document, and also Sagar is working on creating a deployment picture of how the final deployment would look like. So both together, I think we can. Maybe we should create a subgroup, and we can probably discuss there.
Yeah, we can.
Great point, Joseph. So actually, I want to raise that here. Should we create, like we had subgroups last time, should we create subgroups for each of these 3 bullet points? Or the third one, I don't know that it needs we have a subgroup for the SDK, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the contributors. Or potential contributors.
I think so Tal was not a fan of it, but I see the.
I know. Yeah, I was thinking Tal was going to have an opinion on this.
The challenge. I think. Okay, Tal should speak for himself. But what I understood is that because you're independent and you lose the overall picture basically. So that's the I think the main. Let's say comment that Tal had is that we had independent decision. Now, on one end, it's good because at some point, if you want to scale, you have to do distribution somehow. But we have to. I probably there's a balance if there are things that so some of these things or decisions need to maybe discuss then in our SIG Automation meeting. Yeah.
I would leave it then up to the leads, right? There's identified leads here. Do we all agree on these leads? and then they can decide whether they want to call ad hoc meetings or whatever, or bring just their group together. But that's fine.
We can. I was thinking we could either formally do it, or it can happen organically as well. The other thing was, so I was going to create epics and stories and all after today's call. So I was thinking, considering we have only 3 sprints, assuming we are going with the original schedule, John, obviously we have 5 sprints, but obviously we have 2 sprints for integration, documentation, and everything.
Yeah.
So do you think we should have a single board, or do you think even if we have these multiple items, probably having a single board may be sufficient? I think
it's probably fine. Yeah.
Okay.
We have some hands, I guess. So I think I don't know. Are they in order? Is it Vish first or is it
Sagar,
first?
Tal, and Vish?
Maybe, although my name was invoked, I appear like a phantom. I'll just quickly say my issue is we can definitely have sub-projects. I think, though, that anytime a decision needs to be made for design, architecture, etc., it should be brought to the main SIG group. So I would prefer the sub-projects to be about implementation, but I'm worried that decisions are being made there that are not, with consensus.
So I mean, back at our one, we come up with a process that no one followed, which is you first actually have a design doc checked in to GitHub before you actually, and for that particular release, before we actually do the coding. It would be something good to implement at some point. I'm not sure for 3 sprints we can do that, but then certainly it should be a process that at some point we should adapt. This is 6.3 goals. I mean, I would like to see that.
Sagar, I think.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that if we have time, I can show the picture today.
Yeah, I think we might have time. We're getting close, I think, to this wrapping up this conversation.
So, okay, let me know once this is done. I can show the picture.
Okay, Vish.
Yeah, I think about the subgroups, I think Tal and Stephen may have already pitched in some few points. I mean, I think having subgroups is fine from an implementation perspective, but I think we are going to be in this. I mean, this is something I also brought up in the SIG release as well, right? If some of the design docs or the PRs are not there outstanding, they're not open, for people to review for more than like a couple of days or something, we are always going to run into this problem. If a single approve and a single, LGTM will just get it merged, and we would have lost our opportunity to provide our comments. So that will probably happen again, I guess, until we consciously say that, yeah, let's leave this open for some time. So we need to make the decision. Which release will it be? Will it be R3? And we probably need to set the expectation. Hey, things will be rushed. Of course, your contributions are welcome, but it might be merged. You can still go off and give your comments. It may or may not be actually be taken before we merge it. So, we need to just do some expectation matching there, is what I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think what tends to happen is, like, I've got PRs out there that have been open for 2 weeks, right? And they haven't gotten comments. So it's fine. But at some point, when we are on these compressed time schedules, like, we need to kind of execute more quickly. So it's kind of a tension between.
I think, John, just to be clear, I think because we have let's potentially 2 sprints for at the end, we should probably, it's a little bit better potentially, but I mean the 3 weeks, the 3 sprints is going to be very tight no matter what. But,
yeah.
But so yeah, on the PR, I think initially we were having them open longer, and then at the end we rushed a bit, right? So yeah, I think that's my perception. Now, I don't
think we can present every PR in the meeting. I don't think every PR needs to be a consensus. I mean, the idea.
No, not in the meeting. At least that is where I think it's.
Just responding to Tal's chat. He said this is where it can be presented. Like, I think that the point of owners files, and maybe we need to make better use of them, is to parallelize approvals, right? So if there's one, right now our owners files are basically, there's a couple of us that are in the owners files and can approve, and that's it. Over time, the idea is that in the free 5GC repository, I never need to review anything in that. And there's people who are experts in that code, and they can review it and they can approve it, and it can happen without others even knowing about it. And I think that's fine. That's the only way to scale. So like, you know, I agree that for big architectural decisions, it needs to be done as the larger group, but we can't have every single PR and every single decision reviewed that way. It just will never get anywhere. So I'm not.
Because also, I mean, I raised my hand, sorry, but I don't
Sorry.
see anyone else. Like from the documentation itself, right? I think my understanding, because we discussed this last time a little bit, is we said, okay, a document is good, but eventually it will have to be an MD file in the repo, right? And so I think I'm rather going for an MD file in the repo, because that's going to be the final or the final, let's say, design that we are going for, right? So, and that's then also part of the documentation.
And it's on GitHub, and we can reference.
Yeah, correct. So, and
so I think it's always been the case that we want to move. We want to move towards that.
Okay,
I think one time we were saying
so
investigating tools that can turn Google Doc into MD. But then right now it seems like we're mature enough to just go directly to MD. I think is fine.
With AI, you can do it, right? You can.
Yeah,
there are editors, MD editors that can use in IDEs. I mean, I know we brought this up last time also. I mean, I still would like actually to propose, you know, where possible, let's have more than at least, like, you know, last time I was saying four reviewers in total. Maybe it is too much of a ask. I guess we are a shorter community. I just want to make sure that we have newbies who just review and just ask some bunch of questions which we may not have thought through. I know, but of course we need people to sign up also saying that, hey, you know, I want to be an active reviewer. Otherwise, we'll be in the same boat that we were last time, which is fine, because they probably don't have the context. So in some cases to review those PRs, but trying to allow at least, I think we need to see how we can bring in more new fresh blood to start reviewing things, encourage that. Anything to do that will be great for our community to grow. That is the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure we figured out how to do that yet, but I'm not sure.
I certainly don't see that happening on integration cycle. Integration cycle, we probably have to merge things very quickly. But then before then, I would say, let's give it a shot.
One thing I've had some success with is, like, if there's a PR that I'm waiting, like I'm like, okay, this thing needs to merge, I need reviews on it. I do reach out on Slack, and that gives me usually gives me within a day some reviews. So if there's things like that there's no urgency on, like, then I can just let them linger. But if there's urgency, I'll ping the Slack channel, and then I tend to get some reviews. So maybe, so my concern, Vish, is just leaving it open. I don't think actually gets us reviews. Kind of like
makes sense.
Right.
I think maybe a couple of us will try to actively recruit people to come and say, hey, do you mind taking a look at this PR to see if you see any point? I will try to do that, at least from my side.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe that should be our sort of informal protocol for now, is like, if you need something reviewed with some urgency, reach out on Slack. Otherwise, leave it open for, you know, at least a day or so, to give people an opportunity if they're interested.
Yeah, like you said, John, probably advertising that on Slack is a good idea. I mean, I think we have had success in the first release too. So probably let's do that, and let's keep it for 24 hours, and whatever reviewers, that will give an opportunity for the people across time zones to take a look at that if they wish to. And then probably that's a good enough time. If we get only 2 reviews by then, it's what it is. If we get 4 reviews, great. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So sorry, to try and save some time for Sagar. So what I think we can definitely say for A, B, and C, that we will make progress on all of these things in R2. We don't know how much progress in each of them, but we'll make progress on them all. Also on D and E, would seem to be the same. Like really, I'm comfortable committing to making progress on all of these paths in the R2 timeframe. Exactly what that progress is, I can't say right now, and we'll know better after a sprint probably. Yeah, Bala.
Yeah, thank you. On the technical debt, I also wanted to add the documentation as an item there. Timo
Yes.
had some ideas and was kind of passionate about making some of our documentation more professional. So probably hopefully we'll get some help there. So probably we could add in the technical depths, probably we should add the documentation also. So in addition to that, I wanted to say one more thing. Yeah, that we should not, in my view, probably we should not commit for OAI RAN and FreeFiGC core combination. Probably we're not going to do that. I don't think that's our motto as well. So I just want to make sure that we should be explicit on that tomorrow. Like we're gonna do that. Probably we are gonna only committing for OAI RAN and OAI core at this point of time. So that is one thing. The other thing I wanted to say is the D&D, obviously, I don't think we should be committing for that in the R2 timeframe in terms of any releasable artifact. Obviously, we'll make progress, but it will not be any releasable artifact for D&D, is what I'm thinking.
D&D, I'm sorry, what do you mean by D&D?
D and E.
D and E. So item D and E, John.
Oh, items D and E.
Yeah, items D and E underneath the POCs and FU SDK.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, that's fine. Yeah. I don't know. I would ask Stephen and Tal, or Stephen and Sandeep, who are the leads on that. What you think? You can.
So we're looking to do a first, POC integration thing by the end of September. We'll probably give you a better answer by then, to be honest. In terms of like commitment for tomorrow, to be honest, the SDK released independently of the actual Nepio release. It just say that we are supporting a particular versions of Nepio on the SDK.
Okay.
So ideally we release at the same time. But then if not, it's okay. But we are looking to like make some progress, obviously, for R2, hopefully. There are enough people there to actually do something.
Just to be clear, I just we want to make progress. I just want to make sure that we not to set the expectation that will be a releasable artifact.
In terms of like committed, in terms of saying that this feature must be in R2, we'll commit it today that it's going to be a scope X for R2. I don't think we're there yet. Anyway.
Yeah. Cool.
And I think Kush accept the same thing. This is ongoing iterative stuff.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
I had one more. I raised my hand. It's going again. One more thing is like for the leads, should we have one or not? Because in some items we have more than one name.
Yeah, we should probably have one, like just for more accountability.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, but I'm
that's
happy
also
to take on the technical debt lead. But
who's the lead of technical debt?
I can do that. But
okay.
I have my. But of course, if other people, there's things. I mean, that one's kind of like you can pick up something if you want, if it's of interest to you to address it. But whatever, either way works for me. But it's hard to know who's in. Not that there's really anybody in charge here, but but it's hard to know who's in charge.
I guess
well, you've already been leading it, so you might as well continue.
It just avoids what sort of like when more than one person's in charge, nobody's in charge. When more than one person's accountable, nobody's.
So
I'm
also happy to lead.
I'll happily give up that infra thing to Vim.
Yeah, I'm happy to lead that for the time being. I will lead that.
But I will be involved. So I'll
for sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, please include me for meetings and things.
I mean, it will be for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Bernard's not here, is he? I don't want to like.
No, Bernard is
Bernard is more like a requirement.
Bernard is going to give, and Eric will put in requirements, so they are working on that, and then we will focus on.
Yeah, it would be nice that if your Eric and Bernard meetings would be a little, a little more community. instead of one.
Yeah, so
one
I
goal.
just had just an informal call but our goal
Mhm.
was to say we decide our action was that we documented, and then that's the goal. So we are documenting it and then presenting it to the whole thing. So that's the goal.
Yeah. Well, but even that
Okay.
probably would like more
All
people
right.
involved. I'll have a recording would be nice.
We have a hand up, Subhash, and then I want to hopefully we can let Sagar talk for 15 minutes.
Yeah. So in the context of policy framework, I just want to share the update. So I'm trying to formulate some user stories around the package validation, security policy enforcement, and role segregation with taking these items in mind. And also, we are looking some option so that means we can integrate the policy framework with the service assurance use case. So, and also one aspect I'm also looking like currently we are putting the policies in the package just in terms of the security context. So I'm trying to segregate it using the policy. So the policy should be pushed from the policy framework, that privileged mode. So those aspects I'm trying it. I'm trying to formulate one user story around it. But yeah, thing is that I'm also looking. We should have one dedicated separate track where we can discuss on these ideas. Otherwise, I think somewhere the contribution wise it will go fade. So that's why I think you should suggest some dedicated time for this item also. Miss all the POC item I mean to say.
The POC.
So what do you think?
Like okay, so that's an interesting question. So for each of these, so if we're not dividing into subgroups, which it seems like people don't want to do, which is fine. How do we allocate time in this meeting for each of these 5 different tracks to get adequate time?
At the very least, we should give like a like 2 minutes update of what has happened with the subgroup.
Okay, that's a great idea. Yeah, so like a update. So maybe
So John, the thing is, just to as a remark, right, is that the update is okay, but I think if we really have an architectural discussion, my fear is always at least it takes at a minimum 30 minutes, if not the whole meeting.
Right.
That's the problem with it, I think. Or the
Probably
challenge.
we can increase when we start
Meeting
working
durations?
two meetings.
Yeah.
2 meetings. Yeah.
But then so we should kick off with each individual update, and then we'll go into design discussions if anything.
Well, let's at least put them on the agenda, and if things flow to the next meeting, they flow. You know, we have as much time as we have. There's no choice really. But I like this idea of tracks. I want to kind of strengthen Subhash's idea. I think one of the tracks, we should call it the use case track. And to an extent, it's cross-functional. But the responsibility of that track is to make sure that the SIG-1 defined use cases are within SIG-2 handled. And yeah, it goes through, it could go through policy, it could go through workload, it could go through specialization. So to make sure that that end-to-end flow for the use case is done. And people,
horizontal,
exactly, horizontal.
But is that not the release track?
It could be, yeah. I guess so.
Because at the end of the day, it's integrate. I mean, for me, it's the integration and release and putting it all together. So in my view, we have that implicitly somehow.
Yeah, I think those should have that. I think those could be the same thing.
Yeah.
But John, also these items are in very initial state, right? So we need a lot of discussion also to give a proper shape to it. So if we discuss on today's meeting or some release meeting, so I think it will take a lot of time. So that's why I'm suggesting let's try to have some separate time so that we can discuss a new idea, or maybe continue discussing on the POC task or use cases. So that will not create a trouble for the main track.
So you're suggesting a second meeting is what you're saying, and let's is what I'm hearing. Let's table that. Tal's saying there's no time for Sagar. How much time do you need, Sagar?
I mean, 10 minutes is okay now. We have
Okay,
to
so let's hear from Vish, who's got his hand up, and then Sagar will go to your thing so we can make some progress on that. I think that what my conclusion from this discussion is we might need a second meeting. We need to dedicate some time to each track, and when there's architectural issues in any track, it should be discussed among the whole group. That's kind of the understanding of organizational.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, I
Sounds
was
good.
going to piggyback on what Wim had offered earlier and to see, can we actually use PRs? I mean, whoever is brave enough, or whoever wants to do that. That way, we don't need to have meetings for this. Again, it goes back to the same thing about where some people are going to be always extroverts, they'll be the one talking all the time. So if you really want some very good feedback, can we actually put it as readme.mds out there and PRs? Can we have those discussions happening there? It has happened. It's not something new. It has happened in the past in other projects, and it has been effective. So can we do that? That way, in the 30 minutes that we are having discussion, if I don't ask a question, it seems like, oh, we discussed in the last meeting, I got to digest that. I got to understand, that's where PRs come in very handy for that MD, So if somebody is willing to do that, I would work with them. I mean, we want to at least start off with one of them being that way. That way we can make that a regular habit. I know we have always been in urgency mode. So please think about that as well.
So what I tend to do is create an issue and then try to have a discussion on the issue. And then instead of a doc, create an issue.
Yeah.
We have a discussion on the issue, and then it can become an MD design. I would make a request of SIG release leads who are here, if they can, we don't want a CAP process, which is the Kubernetes Enhancement Proposal process, which is enormous, but we might want some sort of lightweight process. It's like what I just said, like the process is create an issue, have a discussion, create a document, have a discussion,
Yeah, I still need to see the doc and the MD, and then people can comment on the MD.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if we can write up a little bit snippet of what our process is, that would help. And let's give Sagar time because we'll just keep talking. Go ahead, Sagar.
Perfect. Thanks. I'm going to share my screen very quickly.
Let me stop sharing. Stop sharing.
Just give me a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the diagram I created with Joseph. Yeah. So me and Joseph are mostly working together. We keep on discussing and then we bring things. Yeah. So here, if you see, here we have the 5G. Here I only mention actually the core network operators. I will mention also the RAN operators. Sorry for that. I have to extend this. So here.
Do you mind putting this in a presentation mode and enhance?
Zoom it up, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And then
Sagar, I've added that on the right. The OIG Gmail controller.
Yeah, sorry, thanks. So here are all the operators of the core network and for the RAN. So for the RAN, I think it's a discussion that either to start with, we are gonna have one controller which gonna work on one CRD, which will decide that whether it's gonna be a monolithic deployment of RAN or whether it's gonna be a split, meaning they're gonna be CUCP, DU, CUUP. So that's why there is only one controller. So this way it's easy to start with, and then of course later we can extend. And here you see there are controllers for the other network functions as it was, which I presented earlier for the core. And then I hope it's visible for everyone. So here, let's say this is the regional cluster where There is in the regional cluster we have all the core network components: UDR, AUSF, AMF, SMF, UDM, NRF, and also the database MySQL. And when we go in the bottom, then there is and then all the different clusters, they are connected with the same Nokia router which we are using in R1. So then there are four clusters. To start with, the first is, let's say, in the first cluster we have I think I'll just rename it. Let's say in the first cluster, first edge cluster, we can have our CU-CP, which is the control plane of CU. Then in the second cluster, we can have the UPF sitting close to the user plane function of the CU-UP. And then there is then in another cluster, there is the DU. And then in another cluster, on the fourth edge cluster, or I don't know, fourth, we can just say another cluster. It does not have to be edge, anything we can say. And in the fourth cluster, we have the two user equipments. I have mentioned two. We can also have one, depending on the resources which are there on the VM on which the CI will run, or the resources we have. Only one UV is also okay to start with. It's not mandatory to have two. So, and here the overhead will be more on towards networking, because if you see that there are more VPCs which are there. So in R1 we had only 3 VPCs, let's say for N4, N2, and N3, whereas now we'll have a little bit more VPCs to be to go towards the point where it's more realistic kind of a deployment. But again, we can also have less VPCs. It's not big of a deal. It's just that's how I have portrayed it, that we have for N2 there is one VPC. For N4 we keep the same VPC internal, and then there is a VPC. Let's say this one VPC RAN internal F1C. These are the internal interfaces among the RAN network functions. So based on that, for that there is one dedicated VPC. So that's how actually the blueprint looks like. I mean, if you want to comment, or Joseph, if you want to add something, just please go ahead.
Can we maybe put the network view on a different picture potentially?
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
The other
what we did for R1. I have a picture that we did for R1. Maybe we can to give you an example.
Yeah, just give me an example. I'll do that.
Just one comment. Does it make sense to centralize the CU-CP as well, along with the regional cluster?
Yes, we can do that, of course. I just created it like this because I think John or somebody said that we would also like to test how many clusters Nephew's Porsche can manage at the same point of time for sync. So this will add some sort of a load.
Well, we're not going to reach those limits in a VM, so that's
Okay.
probably, yeah, I wouldn't like.
Yeah, we probably have to decide.
Plenty of issues there we would need to work on, but yeah.
Yeah, so we should probably decide which clusters we need for this, right? So, and whether because we whether it's regional or edge, and maybe we should call it a far edge or something, or whatever people call it.
Yeah, somebody mentioned a far edge. Like, sorry, Bala's got his hand up.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I was gonna just add to what Ravi asked. So if you deploy the CU, CP, and UP components together, do you think that will reduce the complexity, Sagar, or will it keep the complexity same in terms of networking, etc.?
See, I think just to be clear, Bala, the complexity is not on the net. I mean, it's just we have to create these networks, but it's like whether you do 10, 100, or 1,000, doesn't matter. It's just we have to define them. That's all. So from that point of view, I don't see. The thing is just we have to define more networks. We can support 10,000 networks if you want. But
No,
I think
I'm thinking in terms of, of end-to-end experience, end-to-end testing, everything for R2 time frame. So will it save anything at all if we have them on the same cluster, both the user component and the control plane?
I think for me, my personal view, sorry, is that we should try to test a realistic environment, right? As much as we can, how it will be used or deployed in real life.
Yeah.
Right. And that's for me the most important. Now the question is, if we really run out of resources, then we have to probably discuss, right? But if we can do it with the real life thing, then we should try to accomplish that. At least that's my perspective.
Okay.
I don't know what the other people think, but I'm of the view. Let's try to do something real life, right?
Because we're limited by testbed availabilities. I wonder if that would change when we get into LFN. But yeah, for now.
But how many new clusters? How many new clusters do we need, right? Because if we do CP on regional, edge 1 is the one that we have. Then we just need a far edge. So we need one more cluster, if you will, right?
Two more, I think, one for the DU and one for the user component or use.
I mean, no, so if CP goes in regional, then one cluster less. Then we can also bring the user equipments in the same cluster as DU.
So just one extra per site, if you will. And then the question is, how many sites do you want to do? But right.
Yeah, so I mean, actually, see, this is what in terms of site, I haven't added the site, So let's say I'm not adding another site where there's going to be another CUUP and then the UPF, because that's how it should be, that they are multiple CUUP and then the UPF. But so far,
but you could have two DUs on a single CUUP, right? So you could have two DUs,
yes.
not?
Yes, we can have, but the thing is, multi-DU, multi-CUP, these are all things which are getting tested in OAI,
Yeah, sure. That's not our main thing. But
of
at
course,
least
in theory, yeah. Of course. I totally agree. In theory, yes, that's how it should be. So, I mean, we can design it like that, but I will not be able to validate it, let's say, in that time frame.
Yeah, I wouldn't move the CP up into the region, guys, because you still got there's constraints on that. It's supposed to be in the RAM, right? And so when we extend this into ORAN, you're going to have brick and everything else that's got to go some places. So it's probably good to have an edge and a far edge. I think that's what Wim was talking about as well, right? So this split is a good split, by the way. This is a realistic split. I'm trying to understand why, if anyone doesn't think this is a realistic split.
No, that's fine. I mean, just creating clusters for tests, for temporary testing, it should be okay. So I mean, whatever is needed for reflecting a scenario of testing, we should support it.
Okay, so can you just repeat? So what was the last thing? So you want the CUCP to be in the regional cluster or another cluster?
Regional.
Region?
That's what.
Okay, so it should go in regional. And what about the user plane part? It should be in a cluster known as edge.
Yeah, or edge 1 and edge 2 that we have today. So I think we should reuse them.
Okay, and like this, okay, edge 1, edge 2, and DU will be in a separate cluster.
Maybe we should call that far edge or something like that, Saga, just to distinguish a little bit.
Okay, far edge.
Or whatever other name other people suggest, but.
Okay.
I would suggest going over the ORAN list and picking one of the splits specifically, and they're numbered, so we can superficially say that we're ORAN compliant in that regard, that we're targeting a specific split. They have a document listing all of them. It's pretty complex, but we can just pick one that is easiest for us.
Are you talking
but this
about...
is a split. This is one of them, Tal, right? So this is one of them.
It is? I don't remember. There are a bunch, yeah.
But are you talking about the split at the front haul side? That's like 7.2 AB and other things. Yeah. That's a different thing. Just one.
Yeah, you're not splitting to 7.2 on this one because we're crawl, walk, run, guys. So we're crawling right now, right? And so,
Yeah.
Right.
and
Good
so this will get us to a crawl. It's got a split that's easily transferable into ORAN. Once you do the 7 to the DU split, this is a normal split that's there.
Agree.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
So yeah, we don't have the dual RANs for now, but just moving towards that direction, I guess.
okay, and for the UV, should we have another cluster, or it should be in the same cluster as the DU?
I propose for resources, it should be on the same cluster, at my proposal.
Okay, same cluster as DU then. Okay, so then we
Every
will
cluster
have,
takes some, you know, consumes something from the host. So
Yeah.
unless there's unless we're trying to exercise some functionality, like it probably, yeah.
And the only other thing why maybe too far edges is there any, in terms of setup between the DU and the CU, Sagar, that you need like an IP address or something like that, the order in which you get those type of things matter, and then you exercise that potentially, right? So that I don't know whether there is something like that, but if there would be, then that could be the reason to deploy a second far edge.
no, yeah, that's how it is. There is an order in among them, so I would be needing an IP address. I'll make a list of requirements, you know, and then I can tell you. Well, I mean, then we can discuss. We can discuss in a meeting about it. Yeah. Okay, but I mean, at the moment, it's okay to, like, the far edge is only the DU side, and then the edge is where, or associated, I don't know how do you want to call it, like the edge for the user plane one. That's it, right? Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Then okay, then
If there's more standard terminology, we should use it. Like I've heard aggregate.
Sometimes people call it
pre-aggregation.
near edge and far edge. I've seen.
If there's any standardization of that, we should use whatever terminology the industry uses. But if not,
Yeah.
we'll just make up our own. So we're past time, folks. So if there's anything else, quick. Otherwise, we should wrap it up.
I'm sorry, just going to close here.
One question, Sagar. So I know you demonstrated this, the other meeting to us. So is this the topology that worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, yes, because the only problem here, I mean, for me, the only thing is there because in our scenario, we do run like everything which I have published so far, like all these network functions, they run with different interfaces in different subnets, all that runs. But here, the only complication comes with the networking side. If the router is properly set, then I think there should not be any other problem. That's the thing. Rest.
So actually, that
Yeah.
brings a question. So Wim, what is the status of the dynamic networking piece? Because I think that I would really like to have that in R2.
That's where I'm actively working on. So the intercluster is more or less. I think I have something ready. I have one thing that I actually want to finish. Probably, yeah, it will be this week or early next week. So I think I'm almost there with.
So that will fill that sort of functional hole on the VM, on the sandbox version.
Yeah.
And we're working on like I'm working on a GCP version, and Alexi's working on a OpenShift version, and other people might do other versions. They'll have to fill that functional hole. We'll each have to fill that functional hole in potentially a different way in those different environments. But if we have something for the sandbox version, I think that can help demonstrate the overall flow.
Is GCP version meaning that you're creating different clusters off of GCP?
Yeah. So
at the moment, I think what I'm doing even will work on GCP, but it's not with the multi-networking yet. But I do a form of that myself, by the way.
Okay. All right.
Really?
Well,
No,
let's
GCP, but then it's an implementation again. But yeah, just
okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's take
Maybe I'm
this
testing
discussion to Slack and everything because we're way past time, folks.
Yeah.
But thank you all. We'll see you next week. We'll try and see if we can find a time for a second meeting too.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Bye bye.
Right.
Bye.